Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. So a couple of things. First, I want to apologize for lack of a video on Friday. Trust me when I say that there was a good reason I didn't put one out. In the future, I will be more vocal on Twitter and let you know when I am not going to be able to make content. Second, you may hear a light vibrating in the background of this video. Don't get any ideas. It's an air pump that I had to buy for a fish I purchased about halfway through last week. And finally, I want to talk about this card. That is Foolish Burial with Belongings, a newly spoiled spell from Rate. I expect this card to be very, very good. Its effect is you can send one spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard. So obviously the first thing people thought about when they looked at Foolish Burial with benefits is that there's a couple of gems in the picture. It fits pretty nicely into Gem Knights. It's also a very good card in Volcanics. But I had something a little different in mind for this card. Let's jump into deck edit and I'll show you what I'm talking about. That's right, it's the one, the only, greatest archetype ever printed, TCG exclusive, heir to the BA Fortune and precursor to the Kaiju Dynasty, UA, or Ultra Athletes. It's never really discussed which you're supposed to call them. This archetype was almost there basically its entire existence, but never really playable for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that it lacks the consistency of Tier 1 decks. With Rhoda at 1 and Upstart at 1, the deck lost a lot of its ability to open well, and this is a deck that relies on not bricking. Secondly, it relies a lot on its normal summon. Because there's only one normal summonable monster in the archetype, that is UA midfielder. If you don't open midfielder and a way to get stadium, it's really, really hard to craft playable hands. And third, while it has a lot of innate power, that power is sort of designated into two separate lines. You're either playing this weird stun deck with Perfect Ace and Blockbacker, or you're playing this weird OTK deck with Dunker and UA powered Jersey. So it kind of has an identity crisis that prevented it from ever really being good at either of its roles. However, I think this new spell really adds a lot to the deck. I'll roll through sort of the UA plays, and then I will show you some games. So the first thing you'll notice is that we're playing a lot of cards that aren't actually UA. The first of which is Summoner Monk. This card is obviously just to get out midfielder. The UAs all have this same effect, which is you can return a UA to your hand to special summon one from your hand. They tag out, get it, it's sports. But the only one you can actually normal summon is midfielder, so, you know, you need that card as much as possible. The second thing is we're playing Terratop and Takatomborg. Terratop's good because he special summons himself on an empty board and you can stack him for a rebounder in order to, like, MacGyver your way to a midfielder, but more importantly, this gives you the rank 3 toolbox, one of which is MX Saber Invoker, which can search midfielder, which is awesome. It also gets you access to a bunch of actually good cards. This new spell, Foolish Burial of Belongings, is incredibly potent in the deck because it allows us to pitch UA Penalty Box, which is an actually pretty good battle trap on its own, but more importantly, can be banished from the graveyard to add a UA spell to your hand. It's really important that you have cards like UA Stadium so you can elongate your plays and make sure you have the silver bullet necessary to beat the deck. It also helps you get midfielder because in a pinch, you can just signing deal for him. We've also included Galaxy Cyclone as a sort of additional package so that these represent Mystical Space Typhoon as well. Aside from that, every other card is pretty self-explanatory. Rhoda gets midfielder, Signing Deal gets midfielder, or anyone else if you want them. Terraforming finds Stadium. Stadium's the most important card in the deck, and we're playing one power jersey because now we have 6 ways to get it. Additionally, these ratios of actual UA monsters might be a little bit off. I know there's different builds of the deck, but this is just what I found to be the most manageable. 3 rebounder is a lot, and I would think about shaving them first. But aside from that, I love sitting on ace, so I'm playing as many as possible. Let's jump into the games and see how it goes. So this first match, I don't really know what my opponent is on. It's something making use of Vijam, the Cubic Seed, but I don't really understand how. more importantly, this match just serves to show you the sort of raw power of the deck. The way you want to play it, I believe, is turn 1, sit on Perfect Ace and Block Backer if you can, and then turn 2, go into Dreadnought Dunker and push for lethal, which you will almost always be able to make. This deck is very forgiving. So we're going to lead off with a Speedroid Terror Top, which, remember, represents our ability to get midfielder. Then Foolish Burial with Belongings can get us the second half of the combo, which is a copy of UA Stadium. We're going to normal summon this Rival Rebounder, which gets back the midfielder, which we can return for Perfect Ace. Suddenly, we're sitting on a Perfect Ace and a couple of really big beaters, and then it's his turn. He allures and then sets a bunch of stuff. I'm like, okay, I won't negate any of that. I'm going to normal summon, use Stadium's effect to get Dreadnought Dunker, and then start dunking. We do 3k. I'm like, oh, this can't be destroyed by battle. I'll just use his effect, and he decides to concede. So that was game 1. I guess you sort of understand now why I am infatuated with this deck. The ability to sit on stun cards and then tag out for cards that push for damage is something that most decks that negate things don't have access to. Our opponent is playing Blue Eyes, I guess? He's got like Maiden with Eyes of Blue and Wonder Wand, which sounds like Blue Eyes, but he's also playing 52 cards. Important to understand, even bad Blue Eyes players draw Soul Charge in their opening hand. We're going to go ahead and go second here. So he's going to Maiden, Wonder Wand, and then summon a Blue Eyes. And I'm like, okay, looks like we're going to have to figure out a way to do this. Most importantly is I don't actually have a card in my deck that gets over Blue Eyes. The closest I get is Dreadnought Dunker with the bonus from, what's it called? The field spell, but that's not enough. Instead, I finagle a way to get the shirt out. I'm like, I guess I will just not have Stadium out this game. I'll just repeatedly go into Mighty Slugger and UA Power Jersey. He soul charges, and I'm like, okay, that's getting negated. There's no way I can allow that to happen. Then he has Call anyway, and I'm like, alright, he's making Azure, but he puts it in attack mode. Doesn't this man know anything about UA or the cards I played last turn? So I'm going to normal summon midfielder, tag him out for Mighty Slugger, equip Mighty Slugger with Jersey, and then beat over for 16, use Jersey's effect to beat over for another 33. So important to understand that Jersey can really make a lot of unwinnable games completely winnable. If you attack a defense position monster with Dunker and he has Jersey on, you can pretty easily just do 8,000 to your opponent in one attack. It's amazing how many things have few defense points. Our opponent's on 45 cards and he's playing, you know, the classic fluffles that I seem to always lose to on this show. More importantly, I have no idea what he's playing, but I see 45 cards, I see him set something, so I assume it's Lightsworn, and this is Raikou. Because I don't know what else would be playing 45 cards. I open a classic opener without Foolish Burial and go into Dreadnought Dunker. I figure, you know, if it's a flip effect monster, it's a flip effect monster. And then I set Perfect Ace. But it turns out it's Edge Imp Sabers, so it turns out to be good that I got Dreadnought Dunker instead of something else. I'm going to push for a little bit of more damage with the Dunker and a copy of the Slugger. I'm going to go with the Dunker first because I want that piercing. I don't have a way to kill him, but I'm not concerned because I have Terror Top in hand and Nightmare Shark in my extra. So I'm going to go out into these 2 stun cards I've got, Perfect Ace and Block Backer. I'm going to let him get as many effects off as he wants, and then as soon as he does something threatening, like Fluffle Bear, here comes Ace to negate it. He Fright for Fusions, but guess what? That is getting lose 1 turned by Blocker's effect. And then I draw like a sack the shirt, and I beat over for, what is this, 6,400 points of damage, and he had a second attack. That's ridiculous. So we're back with the deck. Obviously those weren't tier 1 meta threats, but some of them had some good cards in them. I did have to actually attack over a Blue Eyes for one time in my life. I would say I was impressed, but not super surprised by the deck. Personally, I would probably shave the number of Rival Rebounders down to 2, just because this card was a lot better when the deck had to do things like Monarch Stormforth out a guy. Despite that, I think everything else made sense. The Summoner Monks felt bad in every game, but that had a lot to do with the fact that I would draw them with monsters, which I think is my luck, not the actual ratio. We have 18 spells, and it feels bad to be cutting Summoner Monks when things like Terraforming and Stadium suck so bad in multiples. I think maybe I'd bump up to an extra shirt for a copy of Rival Rebounder. I mean, the deck has legs. I certainly think it's good. but it suffers from about the same problem that it always has, which is it's too reliant on your stuff not getting negated. And with the multitude of negation that exists right now, the multitude of kaijus running around ready to tribute your aces, it seems like there's a lot of people packing a lot of main deck hate for this type of strategy. I certainly think Foolish Burial with Belongings has a home in the deck and adds a lot to the deck, but does it push it from tier unplayable to tier 0? Probably not. Either way, it's an incredibly cheap deck. It would be cool to bring to locals, and I probably will do it sometime in the near future. If so, I'll let you guys know when and where that happens and how I do. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed this exclusive sneak peek into the making of Space Jam 2. I hope you enjoyed Perfect Ace doing his best impression of Herald of Perfection with baseballs, and most of all, I just hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give me a like, a comment, or a subscribe. It really helps me out. And if you want to watch me play the decks we make on stream, I will be streaming on Twitch, links in the description, on Tuesday and Thursday from 9:30 to noon for another episode of Early Morning Yu-Gi-Oh!, which you can find full episodes of on my channel. Finally, if you want to see a certain deck or archetype played in the next episode of this show, let me know in the comments below and I will do my best to accommodate you. Otherwise, I will see you on Wednesday.